What's up, everybody? Welcome back. We are here with some more PGA DFS picks and lineup advice for DraftKings and FanDuel. This time for the first unofficial major of the year, the Players Championship down at TPC Sawgrass. Welcome. I'm Brian Jester, co-founder here at Occupy Fantasy, and I'm joined by Niromada, our PGA analyst at Occupy Fantasy. Niro, what's up, man? Happy Players Week.
Yeah, thank you. Coming off pretty good week, as we'll talk about, I think, for the content on Occupy at the Arnold Palmer, and now headed to the fifth major. I mean, this really kicks off like the big golf events, from here through the Open Championship in July. You're just going to have every couple weeks, you're just going to have a monster of a golf tournament. And DraftKings has responded with all the millie makers and stuff that you would expect for this week. So, it's a good week to run hot. So let's see if we can do that.
Let's see if we can. Lots of returning viewers, welcome back. Lots of new viewers as well, as we normally get during these major weeks. If you're new here, you may say, why should we listen to these guys? Well, I've already qualified for the Fantasy Golf World Championship this year. Niromada, in addition to winning 100K previously in Golf DFS, has written up 4 winners so far in his weekly article. So you come to the right spot, and we look at PGA DFS in a much different way than every other site and channel. So what we're going to do in this video, we're going to review last week's plays, just see what we got right and see if there's anything we can learn moving forward for this week for the Players Championship. We will talk about the top plays in our Occupy model, the top 10 data-driven plays for the Players Championship, and why this tournament is so different for DFS compared to some of these past tournaments we've had so far in 2025. We'll talk about which players are expected to see higher ownership than projected ownership will indicate based on some industry projections. Early market movers. What are betting markets telling us already as of Tuesday morning? We have a lot of success in tracking betting market moves. Is one of the biggest reasons for our success at Occupy Fantasy. We have 3 guys that we're targeting based on the betting market so far early in the week. And then we'll talk about some early showdown and weather-related tips at the end of the video, so stick around for that. Nero, big week for one of our site members, longtime site member of OccupyFantasy.com, Jason. He tweeted at us this week. This was during the Arnold Palmer Invitational. Turned a cool $44 into more than $1,100. Incredible ROI here, using a lot of the ingredients we talk about here at Occupy Fantasy. And shout out to you, Nero, because one of the players that helped him win this amount of money was Russell Henley, who was your top pick in our daily plug. So shout out to you and congrats to Jason.
Yeah, first of all, for Jason, what a sick lineup as you're looking at that. First place, third place, fourth place, seventh place, and then 2 guys right at the fringes of the top 20. Now, being fair, a little bit easier in a signature event, less players to choose from, but just absolutely nailed the top 5, which you have to do many weeks to get close to the tops of these GPPs. So yeah, I think the thing that my main takeaway from this lineup was, like, if you consumed Occupy content last week, like, you could have come up with this lineup. Like, this lineup was absolutely doable from the information that was at your fingertips on Occupy, between the model and the plug and the stuff we talked about in the Wednesday update and everything. Like, this lineup was there for sure.
So Russell Henley, top play in the daily plug. The top 15 plays in our Occupy model made the cut last week. 23 of the top 25 made the cut. 5 of our 6 betting market trifecta plays made the cut. And Nero, making the cut may seem like a low bar for signature events. That hasn't been the case through the first couple of signature events so far this year. Just 20% of the field lineups got 6 out of 6 golfers through the cut. So when we talk about how many guys are making a cut coming from our content and our model, like you said, if you're using that, you're ahead of the field because you're making lineups that have a higher chance of 6 out of 6 and therefore have a higher chance of getting to the top of GPPs.
Yeah, well, my main takeaway from that was what I should have done was constrain myself to the top 24 plays, or even the top 25 plays in the model, and I would have had 90% get through the cut. So that's absolutely what I should have done. Yeah, that's just insanely hot. And to your point, we're used to seeing higher 6 to 6 percentages in these signature events, but that's just not been playing out lately. Like, it's been 20% or even less sometimes getting through with 6 to 6 in these signature event weeks. By the way, you'll be nowhere anywhere close to 20% this week. Like, this might be a 3% or a 5%, 2% type of week. Getting 6 to 6 through. So there's added value on just having guys on your lineups that get into the weekend.
And let's talk about which guys are most likely to do that. And we'll discuss a little bit why that is the case, why we expect 6 out of 6 percentages to be so low. So let's move on to the top 10 plays in our occupied model for this week. Two high level thoughts that we have to discuss first, Nero. Let's talk about that low expected 6 out of 6 percentage. First of all, it's because the volatility of TPC Sawgrass. And in my opinion, we have to be more willing to fade chalk at every single salary level this week. We'll talk about the salary buckets here in a second and how DraftKings changed the pricing. So we'll see some guys be higher owned than expected based on the pricing. But Nero, talk about, and you can speak much more clearly to this than I can, but why is this course and this setup specifically, why does it give us more variance, and why do players of all skill levels have trouble being consistent here?
Yeah. So the picture, the poster boy for this would be Xander Schauffele. So here's his 6 finishes at TPC Sawgrass, essentially in the last 6 years. Second place, 19th place, miscut, 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 second place. So that's 2 seconds, another top 20, and then three missed cuts. Like nothing says volatility better than that. So you got a couple things. There's a lot of water on the golf course, and misses are punished here severely. Bad misses lead to penalty strokes and just general chaos here at Sawgrass more than almost any other course that they play all season long. It's a Pete Dye special, maybe his masterpiece. So it's very deceiving off the tee. Like the tee kind of pushes you in one direction, like right into the trouble, and it doesn't look like there's a lot of space in the other, but there is more space over there than you think. And anyway, it's a very tricky golf course with a lot of penalties waiting out there for poor shots. So that just really adds. What it really means is if you're off just a little bit, instead of shooting 72 or maybe a 69, even at another tour event, another stop, you're that same level of off at Sawgrass, and you're going to shoot 76,
Yeah.
or you're going to shoot 78, or you're going to shoot some giant number, and it's going to be really hard for you to make the cut. So mistakes are exacerbated here, and you see very few players. There are some that are out there. Hideki is one that comes to mind, but you see very few players with this very consistent run of like high finishes every single year at Sawgrass. Almost all of them, you'll see a missed cut or two interspersed in their results.
It's crazy because you look at the course and there's a lot of trouble in one area. And so naturally your brain may think, let's play away from the trouble. But that's where trouble is even greater, right? There's no bailout areas here. You have to hit shots. But the thing is, if you hit shots, you can score really well here. And for those of you watching, no matter what your opinion is on YouTube golf, there have been some videos released this week of people playing at TPC Sawgrass, some creators playing at TPC Sawgrass. Go watch those videos if you want to get a further idea of what we're talking about when it comes to the shots needed that you have to execute here at TPC Sawgrass. Now, Nero, we mentioned the pricing. For the first time in a while, we have golfers in the 5Ks for a major event here. And I think the most obvious example of people pointing out the pricing's really soft, these guys are mispriced, is Michael Kim, who's been one of the best golfers to start the season and on the PGA Tour. He's just $5,900. So what do we do with some of these mispricings, and how does the fact that we can get Scheffler at 12.8, a relatively normal Scheffler price, and we can pair him with multiple 5K guys who are actually legit golfers, sum up what we're going to do with lineup construction this week?
Yeah, well, it's an extra hard week for me because a lot of my golfing boyfriends, as you'll call them sometimes, are sitting down here in the 5K range, guys that I'm overly enthusiastic about and have irrational ties towards. So yeah, I mean, the main thing is these types of weeks when they bust out the 5K pricing, it lends itself to more stars and scrubs types of constructions because you have more viable, very cheap options that we just normally don't have. Also, this is every single year the deepest field in golf. So even if they chose the normal pricing structure, you would have more viable 6K plays this week than you would at any other week because the field is of such quality that you have players down in that 6K range, which this week are down in the 5K range, that you would normally never have. They're $2,000, $2,500, some cases $3,000 cheaper than they would normally be. And it really is it makes the dominant lineup construction, stars and scrubs, multiple players from the top and multiple players from the bottom. So that means that you can do that. You have a lot of lineup building freedom. It also means that builds where you ignore that and you stick more towards the middle, a more balanced construction. Those constructions that extra leverage in, especially for like really large field contests. But yeah, I think that it. I will also say that for lower risk contests, like that tends to be the more optimal style of building with the way that when they price the field like this, get as much floor as you can up at top, and then take some of those guys from the bottom whose floor is not nearly as low as you would normally think for someone who's priced like Michael Kim.
Yeah, I mean, really great points there, Nero. And to your point, the leverage we get from building balance, and you're the king of building balanced lineups. You always recommend that in the daily plug in the lineup section. But the studs haven't just performed up to expectations so far this year for the most part. You add in the volatility here. Balanced builds look really nice in this type of event when the field is not going to be doing it. But in addition to the field gravitating towards stars and scrubs and some of the mispricings, now you combine that with the fact that we were just talking about how volatile this course is. We're going to get 1%, 2% owned pivots in all salary ranges that just make it the easiest play in the world in high risk contests when you could play a 12% or 13% guy who's 5 or 6K on a volatile course, or you could play a guy who's projected just slightly less, or hell, in our model, slightly better for 1% or 2%, and it makes it a no brainer. Really, really good game theory week.
Yeah, it's a great week to be a game theory enthusiast. One more point in the favor of that is that I would say for most of the courses that we visit every week on the PGA Tour, you're able to develop a relatively consistent profile of what type of player is going to do well at a particular golf course. Really played out last week at the Arnold Palmer, where the long iron players and the mid iron players, like most of the guys who were excelling in that area coming in, found themselves near the top of the leaderboard. Also, by the way, played out in Puerto Rico, where the bombers who could handle birdies in that grass and the wind did really well. Uh, but Sawgrass is one of those. Forget it. There's no profile at Sawgrass. Anybody can win at Sawgrass. A bomber, a short guy, a short game specialist, a mid iron specialist, a short iron specialist. Like all of those different types have won and done well here. So it just adds even more fuel to the fire to not be afraid. You don't have to fade all the chalk, just to be clear, but it adds reasons why it's game theory optimal this week to be underneath the chalk, especially in the lower price ranges, like especially down in those ranges.
Especially in the lower price ranges. Why play a guy like Michael Kim? Well, you could play an uber talented young guy, just won on the Puerto Rico tour, Carl Phillips. Nero, that fits your profile to a T.
I mean, just put Phillips in my back pocket. By the way, he lives in Ponte Vedra, like
See,
right next to
see.
Sawgrass. I think he practices there. He's very familiar. I mean, don't even get me started. Like I'm gonna have way too much exposure. But yeah, I mean that's the point. And by the way, the natural thing to do, take Michael Kim, play him in cash, play him in low risk contests. Like that's where you eat that ownership. When you go into large field, you don't have to ignore Michael Kim completely if you're making multiple lineups, but don't meet the field on someone like him in a large field contest. By the way, even if he finishes top 10, which is certainly within his range of outcomes, still the right play to be underneath somebody like that in a large field contest.
Absolutely. So let's talk about who the top 10 guys in our model are this week. What is the data telling us? The model has been incredible to start the year. Let's see if it can continue here at the Players Championship. Number one, no surprise, Nero, it's Scotty Scheffler. And I got to say, if you're a Scotty Scheffler fader, this may not be music to your ears, but he also gets the positive putting variance tag in our model this week. It's a big reason why he's number one by a wide margin.
Yeah, I mean, if you watched last week, you saw that Scotty struck the ball very well. I think he was second in strokes gained tee to green, first in strokes gained off the tee, and 49th in strokes gained putting. I think he lost like a 1.3 per round putting. So uh, the regular play is there. He's won here both of the last 2 years. He's going for the three-peat. So there's a lot to like about Sky this week, especially if by any chance at all his ownership comes in lower than you think. But yeah, he's number one in the model for very good reasons, multiple reasons.
Next, then, we have a surprise, which the surprises have performed better than projected ownership indicates. Shocker. But number two in our model this week is Doug Gim, one of those 5K golfers who our projected ownership now is 1 to 2%. Nero, lofty ranking for Doug Gim here, but it goes to show that how wide open this event could be and how volatile it is. Why is Doug Gim ranking so highly?
Yeah, very top five in ball striking for Gim and top 10 in driving accuracy coming in. And, one of those players who just has been hitting the ball really well this year, maybe not scoring as well. But again, that's the area of the game that regresses the quickest. So, his last start at the Cognizant, he was second in strokes gained tee to green and first for a strokes gained approach. Two starts before that at the AT&T, 14th in strokes gained tee to green and fourth in strokes gained approach. Like, the short game is not firing, but get him in a week where the short game is just okay, and he's hitting the ball like that, he's definitely going to outperform that combination of salary and projected ownership, and that's what we're looking for all the time. Got to factor both of those things in together when we're trying to decide who we want to be overweight on in our tournament lineups.
Absolutely. Next, number 3 is Daniel Berger, who a little foreshadowing the markets like as well, Nero, but another guy who fits this course pretty well.
Yeah, another top end approach, top end driving accuracy. Berger's got some subjective stuff in his favor. I mean, this is his area of the country. He's also been coming back from the injury, and he's been progressively playing better and better and better. I don't think he's finished outside his last 4 finishes are all in the top 25. So definitely someone who fits this week.
Number 4 in our model should be no shock to anyone because it's a difficult scoring golf course. Guess what? He's going to be top 5 in our model basically every time that happens. It's Shane Lowry, who was on track to win last week. Nero plummeted a bit during the weekend, but again, still another good fit.
Yeah, that was a little bit expensive for me. I think it was also a little bit expensive for you to watch him tumble down the leaderboard. But yeah, very very good top 20 in ball striking and approach. Also near the top in the difficult scoring metrics, and someone who's just playing very well right now. So last 4 starts, he's got a 7th, an 11th, a 39th, and a second. So you know, obviously playing very well right now and should go well this week.
Number 5 in the model, again, no stud outside of Scotty Scheffler just yet. No slight to these guys, but Siwoo Kim at 8,200.
Yeah, I think wrote up Siwoo, or at least had him in the plug last week. Top 20 in approach, also surprisingly top 25 and around the green, and someone who has got some putting variance waiting to swing back in his favor. So also, I mean, if you go the more subjective route, he's kind of a Pete Dye specialist. He's won here before, and he's got great finishes throughout a number of Pete Dye courses that the course plays. So another one who could absolutely go quite well this week.
Next, we have Keith Mitchell, who's been a staple near the top of the model. The putter still has not cooperated for him in Nero. And then after Keith Mitchell is maybe the biggest shock of all is Bryce Garnett. So try to talk us off the ledge for those of us who have played Keith Mitchell every time. And he hasn't hurt us, by the way. He's made the cut, and he's been fine, and he has not hurt our lineups, but continues to rank highly. And then what do you know about Bryce Garnett? Because admittedly, I know very little.
Yeah, I mean Keith Mitchell has been showing up because he has been hitting the ball so well, and so when models are heavily weighting those ball striking components, then he's going to show up near the top. He also is very good in difficult scoring conditions, so I'm totally fine to play him this week. Yeah, Bryce Garnett, very much like an older guy, grinder, been on tour and the Corn Ferry Tour, and it's kind of been bouncing around with different statuses for the last couple of years. I had to double take. Also, I was very surprised to see him up there, but I know that upon digging in a little bit deeper, he's very good in difficult scoring conditions and is top 5, top 10 for driving accuracy. He also is in pretty good form. He's made every cut that he's played this year. So, you could do a lot worse for his price and ownership combination. That's for sure. And like when you look at his accuracy, driving accuracy, just like the old school accuracy numbers, like he's in the top 10 almost every single week. If you keep it in the fairway here, you at least have chances to score.
And I was going to mention that to you because a couple of these guys so far, you mentioned their driving accuracy. No mention of driving distance. Accuracy much more important than distance here. Distance always helps, as we say on these shows every week. But like you said, accuracy is much more important here at TPC Sawgrass.
Yeah, I think it's just one of those courses where yeah, distance always helps, but in some courses, like distance just means everything because it's such an advantage to be able to blow it over dog legs or take bunkers out of play or do like the angles and that kind of thing at Sawgrass just don't make that as important as it is in normal weeks. So I definitely would skew towards a little bit more of the accuracy folks and the difficult scoring folks. So if you look at like let's look at the last three guys we have on the list. Hideki Matsuyama, Ludwig Oberg, and Grayson Sig. So at least two of those guys, Matsuyama and Oberg, ball striking robots, approach, accuracy, excelling in difficult scoring. And then Sig is surprisingly like a top 20 in approach and also top 10, top 15 for driving accuracy. And again, like Sig, Gim, Garnett, like are you expecting them to win? No. But if you look at Jason's winning lineup that we just looked at the beginning of the show, if those guys get you 20th or get you 25th and they allow you to pound a bunch of guys up near the top of the salary range and those guys do what you think they would do, which is win second, third, fifth, whatever, like then you've got the recipe for a winning lineup right there.
Exactly. That is exactly right. And I can't remember who the tweet was from, Nero, but Ludwig had the poor round in round three, then bounced back with a bunch of birdies in round four. And someone said he got the software update overnight to fix his ball striking. And so the robot's back in full form for the players.
That's great. Yeah, I think he lost. He was seven over like five holes or six holes on Saturday, and that was his whole thing. Like if you took, again, now you can say that every week about a player but someone of that quality who just had a glitch or lost it for a moment or just lost focus, concentration, whatever for some small amount of time. But the rest of the time, he played just as good as Henley and all the other guys at the top of the leaderboard outside of that little stretch of holes.
I will certainly be monitoring his projected ownership this week. Now, speaking of projected ownership, we do a great job in our projected ownership, in our lineup build, and our occupy model every single week. But as we talk about in these shows, for those who are new, every week we come in and we look at our projected ownership, but then we also look at a certain set of industry projections that sharp players and pros really utilize, and it inflates the top golfers in those projections in your high stakes GPPs, in your smaller contests where pros are allowed to play more than $3 in entry fees on DraftKings, $3 or more on FanDuel. And Nero, we've said before, right? Like we have a lot of people who watch our show that they're not going to pay for content, right? And we understand that. That's why we do these shows. If you don't want to subscribe to Occupy Fantasy, we get it. We totally understand. Do we think it will give you an edge? Absolutely. But if you're not going to, that's fine. But Nero, industry projections like this, and we're telling you who's going to be popular, who the sharps are going to be on. Following the sharps is never a bad idea. So while us players who have all the information, we can kind of move around some of these higher owned guys. But if you're playing a $1 GPP or $2 GPP, I would say just use these guys that Nero's about to talk about who are going to be higher owned by the sharps than regular ownership projections in large field because you'll come out ahead more often than not.
Yeah, you don't want to play all of them, but definitely take three of them, lock them into your lineup, and then get different in three other spots, and you will have plenty of differentiation for a lower stakes type GPP or even a middle stakes type GPP where you are maybe just playing one or two lineups this week, and that's all that you're playing. So when we looked at it, you've got Scheffler, Morikawa, Tommy Fleetwood, Aaron Rye. By the way, every single one of them, like are maybe four of the top 10, top 15 iron players on tour right now. Michael Kim, one of the top iron players on tour in the last 4 weeks, absolutely. And Doug Gim, we expect those six to be very much more owned in the higher stake stuff on DraftKings and FanDuel. The only addition on FanDuel, not on DraftKings, is Russell Henley. So we'd add Henley to that list on FanDuel.
And so we mentioned earlier, Doug Gim, 1 to 2% projected ownership in large field GPPs. Let's hammer him there. We can still play him at small field GPPs, but Nero, instead of 1 to 2%, we might see him at 5 to 7%. Is that right?
Yep, exactly. And that's where you're like, wow, Doug Gim, that's like 3, 4x what he is in in regular stuff compared to high stakes, and that's right. But he's still single digit owned, and so he's still playable. But definitely, those are the perfect type of plays to get over on in the large field stuff, and then just maybe meet the field. Meet the sharp field ownership of the 7-8% in the smaller stuff.
Exactly. I think it's a great way to look at it. And again, our projected ownership will be finalized Wednesday evening. Our early run is up in our model, in our lineup builder now. Go see who the most popular players are expected to be. Then by Wednesday, once we have it fully finalized, then you can start making those decisions about where to pivot and who to fade. All right. We mentioned our early market movers at the top of the show. Just an absolute gold mine list that has been profitable for the last couple of years for us, Nero, but this year has been especially on. If you've been playing guys just from this list, in fact, we talked about last week, one of our members only played guys from the trifecta list and won a GPP. Shout out to them for being much smarter than we are. But 3 early trifecta plays, and if you're a new member, guys, what the hell's a trifecta play? We monitor sharp sports books throughout the week. Which golfers have seen their odds to win improve at all of the sports books? It means sharp money is betting these guys at different points. We have 3 guys this week that meet the criteria, Nero. And I would say one shouldn't be shocking based on who our model likes. But the other 2, based on some recent form question marks, I was surprised to see.
Yeah, 100%. So first one, we've already talked about one of them. Excuse me, Daniel Berger. So that'd be the no surprise one. Now the 2 other ones, high quality players, certainly over the span of their careers, but not 2 players that have performed very well in the last few weeks, and that's Sam Burns and Victor Hovland. So Burns is very good around the greens and with the putter, and again, as we talked about before, Sawgrass tends to not have like a dominant player profile. And in fact, in some of the data that you look at, it almost looks like short game and putting is more important here than other facets of the game, despite all the trouble that's everywhere. So you can see that from Burns. Now Hovland obviously is the polar opposite of that, in that he's a ball striking robot type, who's not an excellent short game player, and who has been struggling not only with his fitness but also his form over the last few weeks. So, number one, we always wait to see what the final list looks like on Wednesday night, before we decide, who we're going to play. But I think that Burns Hovland dichotomy just really speaks to how there is no dominant profile at Sawgrass and how the field it's just wide open to everyone. So definitely you'll want to see if that steam kind of sticks on those 2, then I will play them. If it doesn't, I might be a little less likely to play them.
Absolutely. And Hovland, man, I mean, as much confidence as I have in that trifecta list, Nero, uh, it's going to take some
It
guts.
gets it gets tested sometimes, and
Dude,
this would be one of those ones where it really tests you.
dude, it's going to take some guts. Miscut, T22, miscut. For a guy who visibly out of sorts, changes his putter before the tournament. He's talked about his swings nowhere where it needs to be. So, as we've said before, someone somewhere must know something. But damn, it's going to take some guts to play him this week.
Yeah, I mean certainly if he stays on the trifecta list, I will just suck it up and play him and get over the field on him. But yeah, that's one of those ones where you would trust, or you would hope anyway, that somebody knows something about his practice schedule, or the coach, he's back working with a coach, or they found something, or somebody saw him, whatever that might be. You're kind of trusting in the market at that point, because there's not really a whole lot of other reasons to trust wanting to play him.
Definitely not. And we always go back to the Ricky Fowler example for those longtime
Yes.
Occupy listeners and subscribers. Ricky Fowler got hit a few weeks in a row as a trifecta play. This was a couple of years ago, and we were like, "Why?" There was no form to be found. Why is everyone hitting Ricky Fowler? Eventually, it comes out he got corrective surgery on his eyes. Eventually, wins the tournament. Nero, that's the epitome of someone somewhere knowing something.
Yeah, somebody knows something. And the thing is, golf is very volatile. So you will often see somebody catch steam multiple weeks in a row, even if they don't play well maybe those first few weeks. But when that happens, that's almost always the sign that somebody knows something somewhere, and they're playing an angle, and they're going to play it until either they want to stop playing it, or until that person delivers on what they think could happen.
Absolutely. All right, let's close out the show with showdown and weather-related notes. Sawgrass and the Players Championship, infamously known for maybe one of the biggest weather splits, and in fact, reverse weather split based on pre-tournament expectations a few years ago, where one wave got completely demolished by wind and weather. Nero, I don't think we have much of an impact this year, but it's always something to monitor. What are you seeing as of Tuesday afternoon in terms of wind and any potential wave advantages?
Yeah, well, first of all, I would say on any coast like this that's or any course like this isn't really a coastal course. It's not too far away, but um, where the weather can have a real big adverse effect. It always makes sense to have stacks from both waves. Again, if you're playing multiple lines, you're playing 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 150, 300 lineups, make sure you stack both waves in at least a few spots in case a wave advantage materializes. When you look at the weather forecast, it doesn't look like it's anything too crazy. Wind picks up a little bit in the afternoon, both days, Thursday and Friday. Maybe it picks up a little bit more on Thursday afternoon than it does Friday afternoon, but at the moment, it looks to be negligible. The only thing I will say is that um, in these events that can tend to be pretty hard, although Sawgrass is not like a major in terms of scoring. Um, the best the course ever is Thursday morning. It's the softest that it's ever going to be. You saw it at the Arnold Palmer. It's like those are in the weeks where the scoring is tough and the conditions are tough. The best time to be on the course is Thursday morning because basically they stop watering the golf course and they don't ever water it again after like Tuesday or something like that. So the softest and the wettest the course ever is Thursday morning. It just gets progressively drier and more difficult from that point, from that point forward. So it might be a very small advantage towards some of those Thursday morning guys, especially if you're playing Showdown on Thursday. Perhaps that's the case, especially with a little bit of wind pickup on Thursday and Friday afternoons. I definitely would favor the morning starters both those days in Showdown. Classic, yeah. Maybe again, like I said, maybe the tiniest of tiebreaker things that you would think for Thursday morning. Otherwise, probably not based on the way the forecast is now. But I always include an updated look in the Wednesday update, so be on the lookout for that if you're an Occupy member.
Absolutely. And you mentioned Showdown there. Don't forget about that. Save some allocation for Showdown this week in your bankroll. Our Showdown model, in particular, our round four Showdown model, has been an ATM, and the weather playing into that is a part of it. So make sure, again, if you're not subscribed to Occupy Fantasy, get the Showdown model as well. So for our content this week, that'll do it for this video. But our daily plug that Nero writes up his top plays, and more importantly, strategy and lineup tips for this particular event, that'll be up Wednesday morning. Our Wednesday update with betting market information and some moves will be out Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday early evening. Our final trifecta playlist will be posted in Discord Wednesday night. Our Occupy model is already up and running. The projected ownership will continue to update through Wednesday evening. Lineup Builder is already up and running where you can build up to 300 lineups using our model in our ownership. Whew, I think that's it. Nero, it's a big week, man. Good luck to you. Any final thoughts for the people?
Yeah, no, it's a great week to run hot. It's a fun week to play. Just the variance is ramped up to an added degree, and the contests are huge. So it's a good week to get in there and do well.
Absolutely. So if you're not already, make sure you subscribe to the channel here on YouTube. It's free to do so. Best way to show support for the channel, let you know when we go live with our golf videos every week. Give us a thumbs up. The absolute best free way to support the channel so we can continue making these videos. Drop a comment. We want to hear from you. Who do you think is going to win? Any questions about this event? Any opinions? Comments also help us out, so drop a comment below. And again, we'd love to have you at OccupyFantasy.com. So for Nero, I'm Brian. Thanks for listening. Good luck and enjoy the Players' Championship.